So back to the spreadsheet, and what I have are 60 months of returns ending June 2020. July and August data hasn't been posted yet, so we're a little bit behind. And I have the returns, 60 months of returns for Schlumberger. And Schlumberger is an oil exploration and oil services company. And then I have the returns to crude oil. And what I'm using for the returns to crude oil is the returns to what's called the generic front month futures contract return. And this is the most liquid futures contract. And as that contract expires, it rolls to the next contract. And so this is a value that Bloomberg calculates, and you can just pull this down. And so this is telling me the price of crude oil in every month over the last 60 months. And we've seen some pretty serious volatility in crude oil prices over the last 60 months. And then I have the risk-free rate. So then I have Schlumberger minus the risk-free rate. I have the 3 Fama French factors from Ken French's website, which is the return of the market, the small stock premium, and the value stock premium. And so I'm going to run a multivariate regression. And the first thing I'm going to do is run the Fama French 3 factors. And I'm just going to run the standard regression. And you can see the R squared for this company is 75.85. Coming down here, I can see that it has a relatively high market beta, 1.79. It is positive for the small stock premium, but it's not statistically significantly different from zero. So I would not consider this to react like a small stock, and I would say that the small stock, I can't be 95% confident that this is a factor, so I would ignore the SMB coefficient. I would assume it's 0, but I do notice that it does act like a value stock because this is positive and significant. Also interesting is the coefficient, the intercept coefficient. If I take that and I multiply that by 12 and put it in percentage terms, you can see that, Schlumberger got killed. Schlumberger lost 26% per year on average over the last 5 years, more than it should have lost, and I can see that this is statistically significantly different from zero. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run the same regression, except now I'm going to have 4 factors. I'm going to have the market, the small stock premium, and the value stock premium, the standard Fama French factors, because I know these are priced. I know that this is going to tell me something about the security's return, and then I want to see the incremental effect of adding crude oil, which I know is important for Schlumberger. And my expectation is that when the price of crude oil is up, Schlumberger is doing better, and when the price of crude oil is down, Schlumberger is doing worse. And so I would expect a beta crude or a beta oil to be positive. And so let's scroll down and see what we get. Here's the R squared. Again, I'm looking at the adjusted, so 78%, not quite as high as the actual R squared, but there's the adjusted R squared. Remember, with I have multivariate regression, that's what I want to look at. I can see that the intercept is still negative and significant. So multiply that by 12 and put it in percentage terms, and that still pretty much hasn't changed. Still 26.2, but I can see that I have a slightly lower market beta, still significant. SMB, the small stock premium, still not significant, so I would still consider this to be 0. The value stock premium, HML, still positive and significant, but now I can see the crude oil coefficient. And I can see that the crude oil coefficient is positive and is significant, and this is what I would expect, that when the price of crude oil is up, Schlumberger does better, and when the price of crude oil is down, Schlumberger does worse. The next tab, I have JetBlue, and I've run similar regressions, except now for JetBlue, and so I have 60 months worth of returns for JetBlue, and everything else is the same. I'm going to run the regression, and I have a much smaller R squared. Note that the intercept is negative, but is not statistically significantly different from 0. The market beta is still positive and significant. It's greater than 1, which is what I would expect for an airline. Note that the small stock premium is not statistically significantly different from 0, but the value stock beta is. And then scrolling down to the oil, I can see that I have an intercept that is, again, negative but not significant. here are my betas, and note that I have a crude oil coefficient that is negative, but not statistically significantly different from 0. That's strange that it's not statistically significantly different from 0. So what's going on? Why isn't JetBlue's price affected by crude oil? Why aren't energy prices, why isn't energy a priced factor for JetBlue? And it's just because we're in crazy times. There's so much else that's driving JetBlue's returns beyond the cost of a single input that I'm going to find that this isn't statistically significantly different from 0. I've been running this regression for years. I just have sort of an older version of it right here. So this is ending in 2015, and you can see that, yeah, crude oil is negative and is statistically significantly different from 0. This is a priced factor. In addition, I have American Airlines right here, another regression. And you can see that crude oil is small. The coefficient is relatively small, but yes, it is statistically significantly different from 0, at least at the 92% confidence interval. So what's going on with JetBlue right now? Well, there's just so much else driving the market these days that whether or not the price of oil is up or the price of oil is down, the fact that people are not flying, this is what's affecting JetBlue's price. And so you can see that it also has, although not statistically significantly different from 0, a negative intercept. This is important because, well, both of these stocks are losing money, right? Both JetBlue and Schlumberger are losing money in the transportation industry and in the oil industry. And often, as the price of oil changes, these two companies would move in opposite directions, but now they're moving in the same direction because of these other factors are driving these prices down. So now I've changed the data a little bit. I have the return on Starbucks and I have the return to coffee. And again, this is what's known as the generic front month or first month coffee futures contract return. And this is a proxy for the price of all coffee. And so even if the coffee I'm buying is much more expensive than the coffee that underlies the futures contract, it's roughly going to be the case that changes in price in this contract are going to mimic changes in price in the coffee that I'm buying. And so I can use this as a good proxy for the price of coffee, changes in the price of coffee for Starbucks. And so again, I'm going to run the same regressions, and let me just click to the next tab. And here I have the CAPM, and I can see that I have an R squared of 27.5%. I have a intercept, which is not significant, and I can see that I have a CAPM beta of about 0.72, so that I can see that this is slightly less cyclical than the market. Then I run the Fama French 3-factor model, and I'm going to have an R squared of 30%. Now I'm going to have an intercept that's positive, but still not statistically significantly different from 0. My market relationship is 0.85. I can see that this is acting like a large company. It has a negative coefficient that is significant with a small stock premium, but it's acting like a core company. It's not value or growth, and so I would consider this to be a core company. And again, I have an intercept that's not statistically significantly different from 0. So now I've added factors that I know are important, that I know are going to explain things, and what I'm looking for is looking to see if there's any incremental value of including coffee in the model. Does coffee explain anything else? And I can see that I have almost no change in my adjusted R squared. My intercept is still not statistically significantly different from 0. I still have a market beta that's positive. I have a small stock beta that's negative and significant. Again, my value stock premium is not statistically significantly different from 0, so I would say this behaves neither like value nor growth, and so it behaves like a blend or core. And now I can see coffee, and that's interesting. So it is negative, but it is not statistically significantly different from 0. It doesn't seem as if the price of coffee over these last couple of months has been driving, these last 60 months on average has been driving the value of Starbucks. If coffee is up or coffee is down, it doesn't seem to be affecting Starbucks' return. And again, this is a regression I've been running over the years. So let's take a look and see what this looked like 2017 in February. I can see that I had a negative and statistically significant coefficient for coffee. Okay, so here when the price of coffee went up, the return of Starbucks went down. This was a priced factor. And then back in 2015, I can see that still significant at the 94% level, a little bit smaller coefficient, but still a priced factor. But back in 2013, it was actually positive, and it was not statistically significantly different from zero. And so, interestingly, the price of coffee, which you would expect to be an important input factor, possibly might expect to be an important input factor into Starbucks and greatly affect its return, turns out that sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And in our most recent situation, it's not a statistically significant priced factor in the return of Starbucks. The market is, and what happens to large stocks is, but the value stock premium is not priced, and coffee is not priced. This is important because if it's the case that I think that something is going to happen to the price of a commodity, and I then invest in a corporation which I think is going to have a factor load for that commodity, and the price of that commodity changes. Oh, and why would I do that? Because it's difficult to invest in coffee. It's much easier to invest in a stock whose price is affected by the commodity than it is to invest in a specific commodity. So this is not an uncommon thing to do. It might be the case that I'm restricted. I can only invest in stocks and I can't invest in derivatives. And so this might be a factor as well. So the point is that it's very common to do this, but it would be necessary to have sufficient evidence that coffee really affects Starbucks price. Because if I think there's going to be a huge drop in the price of coffee and I go out and buy Starbucks expecting the price to go up, well, it may not actually move. And so that's an important thing to know, is that coffee may not actually be a priced factor for Starbucks.